Hey everybody, welcome to another Crack-a-Pack Tuesday on the Mana League. I'm John as always, and we've got another pack of Dragons of Tarkir sitting here, so let's crack this on open. And let's see what we get. We've got, first up, a Wandering Tomb Shell. This is a vanilla 1/6 for 4. Not a fan of this. I don't want to ever really be picking this. The Toughness Matters deck I just don't think really exists, so this just doesn't really have a place for me. I mean, if you're desperate for a 4-drop creature, I guess, but hopefully you'll get something else. Next up, we have Volcanic Rush. This is the expensive Trumpet Blast. It's 4 and a red instant, and it says attacking creatures get +2/+0 and gain Trample until end of turn. So Trample apparently costs 2 colorless mana. And I would kind of agree with that. Giving Trumpet Blast Trample requires a bit of a higher investment for sure. That being said, I don't know if I want to be paying 5 for this. It kind of gets you out of the aggro deck if you're playing 5-drop combat tricks. It kind of functions as an overrun, but a pretty poor imitation of overrun. So I just don't think I'm going to be picking this. Definitely not first pick, and definitely not terribly early in my packs. Next up, we have Dramoka Warrior. This is another vanilla. It's a 1 and a white for a 3/1. It's a relevant creature type. It's a human warrior, so it can go in the warrior decks, which is nice. But that being said, it's just a 3/1 for 2, which is totally fine. I love myself some 3/1s for 2s. Oresco Swiftclaw was great in whichever set he was in, Born of the Gods or Journey. But 3/1s for 2 are fantastic. They're nearly first pickable in a really weak pack. Hopefully not in this pack, but we'll see. But it's totally fine, kind of mid-pack pickup. Next up, we have Coat with Venom. This is a single black for an instant that says target creature gets +1/+2 and gains Death Touch until end of turn. We talked about this last week. It's a totally fine, basically removal spell. You're going to be using this to kill something, hopefully, on defense. You're not really going to be using it on offense. The 1 black is what really sells this for me. A single black for this ability is pretty nice. You can leave up a black with almost no opportunity cost. I'd be pretty happy to take this relatively highly, but ideally not first pick. Next up, we have Sandstep Scavenger. This is a 4 and a green for a 2/2. That says when Sandstep Scavenger enters the battlefield, bolster 2. I'm not terribly sure how I feel about this guy. A 2/2 for 5 is pretty bad. Well, very bad, in fact. A 2/2 that makes something else +2/+2 permanently for 5 is pretty okay. You know, that +2/+2 could go on something very useful, but you don't get to direct that. It's going to go on whatever is the weakest thing you have, which is what keeps this card down for me for a bit. And of course, if you're behind and you're playing this on an empty board, it's a 4/4 for 5, which, I just don't want to be playing. I don't foresee myself playing this guy terribly often unless I have, a couple of amazing bolster targets that I know I'm going to reliably hit. But outside of that narrow circumstance, I don't think I'm going to take this very highly at all. Next up, we have Negate. Negate is just a solid sideboard card, in draft anyways. I main decked it in my pre-release, and it did some work, but in draft, where the decks are going to be a little bit more in tune, I don't think I want to be taking Negate and main decking it ever. This basically fills the role of the blue card that is the only blue card in the pack when you're certainly going to be blue, so you take it for the sideboard, but definitely not a first pick. Next up, we have Tread Upon. Tread Upon is a single, not a single, it's a 1 and a green instant. It says target creature gets +2/+2 and gains Trample until end of turn. It's a pretty just solid combat trick. It's not quite giant growth. It's not +3/+3, and it's not a single mana, but it gives Trample, which is, totally fine. It's a ever so slightly weaker Awaken the Bear. Again, not first pickable, but relatively high pick, and if you're in green, you're going to want one of these, I think. Maybe 2, probably not, but definitely 1 is fine. Next up, we have Contradict, our second counter spell of the pack. 3 blue, counter target spell, draw a card. Again, kind of playable in sealed. I wouldn't want to ever really touch this in draft. 5 mana for a counter spell that just draws you a card is pretty darn expensive. Not really something that I'd be looking to take in main deck. Maybe side deck, maybe if I was an incredibly controlling Silumgar deck. But even then, there's a bunch of other stuff I'd prefer over this. Next up, we have Ojutai Summons. This is a 3 blue sorcery that says put a 2/2 blue Jin Monk creature token with flying onto the battlefield, and then rebound. Do it again the next turn. I was slightly down on this in the set review. I compared it to Rise of Eagles, which I found to be basically unplayable in Journey into Nyx, or Born of the Gods, or whenever it was. Rise of the Eagles was basically this, but it cost 1 more, and yet it had Scry on it. Turns out that 5 mana makes this actually fairly okay. This was amazing in Sealed, where I consistently got to 5, before much was even done on the battlefield. I think Draft is going to be faster than that, so this is going to go down a little bit, but I still wouldn't be upset picking this first in a really weak pack. And I wouldn't be upset at all taking it relatively highly if I was going to be blue. Next up, we have our first uncommon, Dramoka's Gift. This is a 4 and a green instant that just says Bolster 4. I had this played against me a couple of times, and I never really cared, to be honest. They spent their entire turn 5 making a creature pretty darn big, but I always had an answer. Now, of course, you're not always going to have an answer, but I just don't really want to be the person taking turn 5 off to make something bigger, giving my opponent basically a free turn to draw into that removal, and any kind of removal will stop it. Even a pacifism completely negates this card. So I'm not a big fan of Dramoka's Gift. I think it's just way too expensive for what it does. But I'm excited to watch it. I'm definitely excited to watch it. It could go up, and that's purely because it is an instant, so it can be a combat trick. Next up, we have a good one here. Silumgar Spell Eater. This is a 2 and a blue for a Megamorph 2/3, so it flips up and becomes a 3/4. But when it flips up, it mana leaks. And that's L-E-A-K, not L-E-E-K, like the vegetable. When Silumgar Spell Eater is turned face up, counter target spell unless its controller pays 3. The Megamorph cost is 4 and a blue. I really like this guy. I really, really, really like this guy. Counter spells that leave bodies behind are great. Now, the thing is you really want to be doing this on turn 5, 6, 7, when they're casting their bombs. The later in the game this goes, the less and less good the mana leak effect is, because your opponent's going to have the 3 to pay for it. But if you play this anywhere on that curve, it's going to be pretty darn solid, and potentially steal something your opponent really, really, really wanted to cast. So I'm really happy about taking that guy, first pick even. Next up, we have Deadly Wanderings. Deadly Wanderings is a 3 black enchantment that says as long as you control exactly 1 creature, that creature gets +2/+0 and has Death Touch and Lifelink. You've got to go all in on this card. You've got to draft a deck that is built around, pumping up 1 creature, or playing, a creature and then exploiting it away and still just having 1 creature on the battlefield. I haven't seen it happen yet, but I think in the right deck, this could do pretty well. I don't want to be the pioneer of that deck, though, because I think it's really, really, really risky. If that deck turns out to be a thing, this obviously becomes a first pick card. You take it and you build around it. I am just very cautious about whether that's a legitimate thing or a trap, and I'm gonna trend towards trap for the time being. So I'm not gonna first pick it. Our rare Hidden Dragon Slayer. This is a 1 and a white creature, human warrior. It has lifelink. It's a 2/1. It has Megamorph. The Megamorph cost is 2 and a white to make it into a 3/2. And when it's turned face up, destroy target creature with power 4 or greater on opponent control. So you get to smite the monstrous. And it even is so nice as to say an opponent control, so it's not going to trigger and blow up one of your own things. This card seems fantastic. It's a 2/1 for 2 if you need it, which is great. Those are perfectly fine stats, especially in an aggro deck. It's a 2/2 at a 3-drop as a morph, if you need that, and everybody wants that. That's been the awesome thing about this format, is never really being color screwed because you have so many morphs. And you can flip it up late in the game to kill something. So this has a use in every single stage of the game. Seems like a great card to me. It's not a bomb. It's not going to win you the game, but boy, does it have a lot of utility behind it. I'm very happy to see that card, and I would definitely first pick it. We've got a foil as well, and it's a foil rare too. Stratus Dancer. It's a 1 and a blue Jin Monk. It has flying. It also has Megamorph. It's a 2/1. And then if you Megamorph it for 1 and a blue, it's a 3/2. And it says when Stratus Dancer is turned face up, counter target instant or sorcery spell. So it's the exact same cycle as Hidden Dragon Slayer, actually. However, I do think it's a little bit weaker than Hidden Dragon Slayer. I think it's a great card. A 2/1 flyer for 2 is great. A 3/2 flyer for 2, but on turn 4 or later, is totally fine as well. And being able to steal an instant or sorcery spell is pretty okay. We've talked at length about how you don't want to get too best case scenario mentality on that. You don't want to think about all those instants and sorceries your opponent's playing, because on average they're going to be playing 5 or 6, and most of them are not going to be all that impactful. They're going to be little piddly combat tricks or things like that. If this was counter target creature, I think this card would be absolutely amazing and possibly broken. But as it is, I think it's just good. I think it's solidly good. And of course, we've got our land and token. So that actually gives us a pretty difficult choice between a pair of rares of the same cycle, too. Well, you've got the choice of, do you want to go kind of in the sky with the Dancer, or do you want to go kind of aggro-y and hopefully blowing things up with the Dragon Slayer? Not only that, but potentially warrior deck. I think ultimately the Dragon Slayer is more powerful than the Stratus Dancer, just because of the instant or sorcery clause. I think if it was something else, if it could hit creatures, I think the Stratus Dancer might edge it out here. But because it doesn't, I'm going to go with the Dragon Slayer. It's removal in the late game. It's going to hit something, and I'm going to be able to control when it hits something that's probably going to be impactful. I'm going to flip that up when there is something power 4 or greater that I really want to kill. The Stratus Dancer, I feel like so many of the targets are going to be really weak. They're going to be tread upon. They're going to be these little combat tricks that, I might save myself some damage. I might save a creature. But ultimately, it's not going to have the same effect as killing their bomb like Hidden Dragon Slayer does. So in the end, I'm going to take the Hidden Dragon Slayer from this pack. Definitely let me know what you would take and why you would take it in the comments below. I love hearing people's opinions on what the cards were in the pack and what they would have taken. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. You can find me on Twitter at The Mana Leak. That's L-E-E-K, like the vegetable, not the card. And you can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/TheManaLeak. You should also like the videos here on YouTube. Click that little thumbs up icon if you like my videos, and definitely think about subscribing to the channel. There's a subscribe button in the show notes, and there's a subscribe button on the outro. That will keep you up to date every single time a Crack-a-Pack video comes out, a Wacky Wednesday video comes out, a Spiky Saturday video comes out, and any other special videos. There will be special Crack-a-Packs. There will be other special videos here and there. So definitely don't want to miss those, so make sure you subscribe. As always, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all next time.